Josh is out, but he'll be returning in studio tomorrow. In studio with me today is our dear friend, Dr. Kevin Linderman with Dr. Kevin's Wellness Clinic. How are you doing on this lovely Monday afternoon?
Good, man. I'm in the big seat today. How about that?
You are, man.
Glad to be here. I was actually going to do my Josh impression. Welcome to the Josh Guillory Show.
We'll get that one on the next one.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, man. I'm glad to be here today.
Yeah, same. I had a great weekend. I walked out on Sunday morning and I discovered it was cold.
Yeah,
Did not expect that at all.
right. I was kind of hoping Josh was going to be here. I was going to pick at him a little bit. I was hoping I was going to say he just needed 12 more indictments. He could join Trump in Washington. I'd still vote for them both.
Same here.
Yeah. No, I'm glad to be here, man. Glad to be here sitting in the big seat.
Yeah, and before we got started, Doc, we were talking a little bit about something called POTS, I think.
We were. So I was talking to a lady just this morning, and I was talking to her about her son. Her son's 14 years old, and his POTS had gotten so bad that he had to drop out of school and was basically bedridden. And she was telling me the story about his friends FaceTime him, but he can't really spend time with his friends, and just how much it had changed his life. And I'm just so thankful for platforms like this where I can get the word out about these disorders that so many people are suffering with in Acadiana. And so what POTS means, and what happened to this 14-year-old is he got COVID. And then right after he got over COVID, he started having these POTS-like symptoms. And what POTS means, POTS is I guess it's an acronym. Is that the right word?
I think so.
Yeah, for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And, just the name itself sort of bothers me a little bit. It kind of goes to a larger aspect of our healthcare system. We've gotten so used to naming things, we sort of name what's in front of us instead of looking for underlying causes. And that's one of the big bones that I have to pick with the American healthcare system is it's all about a diagnosis code. And look, I get it. The reason it's that way is because we've got to enter a diagnosis code in our computer so we can enter a treatment code and a billing code so that we can go get all of that sent off to the algorithm. So hopefully one day in the future, we get paid for that. And, I'm not part of that system, but I do get that system. And so if you look at POTS, postural orthostatic, it means when you move, tachycardia, your heart races, syndrome, and it comes with other symptoms. And so I want us to move beyond thinking that naming something is a solution for it. And we've sort of been brainwashed with that since the time we're little to, labeling it tells you the answer. Labeling it is the first step.
Right. It seems like once we have a label, we should look at the underlying conditions.
Where's it
What are the
coming from?
causes?
We don't do causes very well. I mean, my gosh, let's just say that, I go to the doctor and I say, Doc, my sinuses are painful and inflamed. And he comes back with sinusitis. If you look itis up in the medical dictionary, it means painful and inflamed, right? So we still didn't answer. That's why I went in, was I had sinusitis. And so it doesn't matter if it's from an infection, something structural, some allergies, it's still sinusitis. Your sinuses are still painful and inflamed. Gastritis, my stomach is painful and inflamed. Arthritis, my joints are painful and inflamed. So I want us to move beyond that and begin to ask the questions of why. Now, I am by no means saying that POTS is not a real disorder. My gosh, it is a terrible disorder and it disrupts people's life. But the problem with POTS itself is because of the tachycardia, because of the racing heart, these people oftentimes find themselves in a cardiologist office. But POTS is not really a cardiovascular disorder. It is very much a nervous system disorder. So the heart is just doing what the nerves are telling it to do. And so if you have a short in a lamp, you can change the light bulb all you want, but the lamp is not going to come on. You have to fix the wiring. And that is very much the way we look at POTS. These patients will go to the cardiologist's office, nothing structurally wrong with their heart, nothing's wrong with their heart at all, but it's still racing. Their blood pressure is going down. Sometimes their blood pressure will go up. And chasing all of those symptoms is kind of like a dog chasing its tail. You're never really going to get anywhere until you look at the nervous system. And more specifically, It's a branch of your nervous system called the autonomic nervous system. Now, that's the part of your nervous system that runs your body when you're not thinking about it. Okay, so in other words, if someone's breaking into my house, my pupils dilate, my heart races, my blood sugar spikes, so I have a lot of quick energy. The blood goes in my arms and legs so I can fight or run faster. All of this is part of the autonomic nervous system. Now, the other side of that coin is whenever I eat, my nervous system recognizes that and it digests my food. It starts making enzymes. You know, you don't eat food and go, okay, stomach, start turning. Okay, valve open, start making stomach. It runs automatically. That part of our nervous system is called the autonomic nervous system. It runs our body in the background. And there's two branches to this autonomic nervous system. One is the calm side. We call it the resting, digesting. That's called your parasympathetic nervous system. That's the good side. That's what we want to run in. That is what runs our hormones, allows us to sleep. We digest food. It gives us all the good stuff, you know, the libido, all the fun stuff. The other side of the autonomics is called sympathetic, and that's our fight or flight side. So when we go into fight or flight, there's 50 or 60 different mechanisms that your body goes through, but the first one is my blood pressure goes up. I need a lot of blood pressure because I'm going to fight or run. The second one is my digestion shuts down. I don't need to digest a sandwich. I'm running from a lion, right? The third thing that happens is my sleep hormones stop being produced. You're not going to be hear someone breaking in your house and go to sleep at the same time, right? Yeah. In fact, if you hear someone breaking in your house and you get your gun and go out there and the cat just knocked a vase off, it wasn't someone breaking in at all. You're still not going to go back to sleep.
No, I'm going to be panting for like a couple minutes at least.
Exactly. And then the fourth thing that happens is I need a lot of quick blood sugar, so my blood sugar spikes. I need a lot of energy, so my blood sugar really spikes. Now, this sympathetic part of your nervous system is the emergency mode. Your parasympathetic nervous system is where you want. That's your calm. We call it the resting, digesting, healing, breathing side. That's where your hormones, your libido, all that stuff runs. And what POTS is a complete dysregulation, is a complete mismatch of the balance between your sympathetic and parasympathetic. So your fight or flight is stuck completely on and your calm relax is shut completely down. It would be like if you get in your car and you're driving to work and your accelerator gets stuck all the way open and about that time your brakes fail. That's what POTS is. And so, you know, people will have they faint whenever they stand up or they get dizzy, the sweating, all of these symptoms that they get from POTS are 100% a nervous system disorder.
Now that is incredibly interesting. You mentioned having a young man come in earlier. I thought it was a condition that was limited only to women. So that itself is news to me. I didn't know that men could be affected by it.
Yeah, and it's really, and especially now we're seeing a huge spike in this since 2020. But it could be all ages. Like I said, I was talking to a mom with a 14-year-old with this. And so there's so many things that affect our nervous system in a negative way today, which we've kind of talked about on previous shows. But the most effective way that we have to test the balance between your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system is a new computerized algorithm called heart rate variability. And once we look at this heart rate,
Doc, we're going to have to go to a quick break.
Okay.
But when we come back, I want to talk more about that test.
Okay, great.
show on KPL 96.5 and streaming on rumble.com and rebroadcast on KLFY Plus. I am Q Magic, your host for today. Josh is out, but he will be returning tomorrow. In studio with me is my co-host, Dr. Kevin Linderman with Dr. Kevin's Wellness Clinic. Doc, last segment we were talking about POTS and testing and all that good stuff. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the testing works and why it's effective, why it matters?
Sure. So people now are somewhat familiar with the term heart rate variability because a lot of the iWatches, or is it Apple Watch, a lot of the electronic watches will have heart rate variability on it, but it's typically one number. And the more advanced computerized heart rate variability that we do, it actually tests the nervous system in three ways. It tests it in calm, in stressed, and then in recovery. Because we want to know what you are when you're just sort of sitting there. We want to know what your baseline is. And then we put the person under a little stress, which is basically having them stand up. And we watch the change in their nervous system. And then we have them sort of sit down and recover. And we want to see how quickly the nervous system can recover over to that calm. We call it the breathing, sleeping, healing kind of part of the nervous system. And and we see most of our people that come in that have POTS peg the machine out. Like the computer can't even measure the severity of imbalance in that emergency side versus healing side because you can't be in both, right? Like you can't be in crisis mode and healing mode at the same time. And so these POTS patients, when we do their heart rate variability, it's a heart monitor. We put them on and we have them go through these maneuvers, and it will show us not only that it's there, not only that we test and say, yes, you have it, but it shows us what branch of that part of the nervous system is malfunctioning so we can know how to fix it. And that's what's really important. You know, you just like we talked in the first segment, labeling it is not enough. Then we want to ask the question now, what can we do to actually bring it back? And so the baseline question with that is, what would cause the nervous system to get so into fight or flight that it gets stuck there? And the truth is there's lots of things. Not only emotional type stresses, and this is one thing that people don't realize. When we say stress, they think of, well, the traffic, the bills, the boss, the kids, you know, those things. And that is a factor. The other thing is, what about something in your body that doesn't belong there? Maybe mold toxicity, maybe a virus, a hidden virus, maybe a hidden bacteria. And when I say hidden, there's a branch of infections that we call stealth infections. What that means is that you're carrying around some critters that you don't know that you have, right? If you've ever had chickenpox, you have a virus that lives in your body forever. If you've ever had a cold sore, you have a virus that lives in your body forever. If you have mono, you have Epstein-Barr. So we're carrying around all of these bacteria and viruses and parasites and amoebas and protozoas and candidas and all these things. That whole category we call stealth infections. And that can be part of the contributing factor that puts their body stuck in this sympathetic dominance fight or flight.
I remember when I was 18 or 19, you were talking about chickenpox living in your body forever, and out of nowhere, I developed this super painful rash on my side. And it was painful enough that I went to the doctor, like, Doc, what's going on? And he came back and he said, you have shingles.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I ever learned that chickenpox stays with you forever.
Yeah. Viruses can live in our body forever. And not only do they contribute to things like autoimmune, but they also, your nervous system is going to react to that, right?
Because it's a foreign body.
A foreign body, right? Heavy metals are another one. I mean, there's tons of things that can cause this imbalance called POTS, but that's really where the rubber meets the road. Once we do the heart rate variability, we determine, yes, this patient has an imbalance. And by the way, these nerve imbalances can also be cause many other conditions like IBS, bowel problems, sleep problems, hormonal problems. You know, once your body gets stuck in this fight or flight, none of those calm side activities work very well. And it's funny because when I talk to a patient about this, I say something about fight or flight, and they go, that's where I'm at. Like they know. People know they're stuck in fight or flight.
That makes sense. It seems like it would be constantly, basically, never-ending anxiety of where's the threat, how do I respond to
Yeah.
it, what do I do?
Yeah. And you know, society has changed. We are go, go, go all the time, you know. I have a 15-year-old son, and I like to expose him to some of the shows I watched when I was young. So we were watching the Andy Griffith Show the other day, and even back then, 50 years ago or 40 years ago, whenever that was, times were different. They're sitting on the front porch picking the guitar and whittling and telling jokes, and we just don't get enough of that these days. It's go, 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 stress, stress, stress from the time we wake up in the morning to take something to pass out at night. It's just never ending levels of stress. And then you have all these outside factors like all the harmful blue light we're exposed to, all the electromagnetic fields, all the viruses. There's just so much putting us into fight or flight these days that's why we're seeing an increase in these chronic conditions like POTS.
Now, one of the things we were talking about earlier was mold.
Yeah.
And I can't help but think about Louisiana. Every apartment complex, one of the first disclosures is if there's mold, it's not on us.
Right. Exactly.
Which makes me question what impacts does that have on health, and what can we do to health and wellness, and what can we do to reduce those impacts?
Yeah, so mold toxicity is a huge issue in Louisiana. Sometimes up to 80% of the homes or offices in Louisiana may have some kind of mold toxicity. And it's a really negative thing for your health. And so, what we might do when we get back from break is I'll go a little bit deeper into what mold, what mycotoxic illness actually looks like, and the conditions that it can cause, because it's a real thing.
Absolutely. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to take a quick commercial break, but stay tuned. We will be right back.
Good afternoon, and welcome back to the Josh Guillory Show. I am your host for today, Q Magic. Josh is out, but I am in studio with our co-host, Dr. Kevin Linderman. How we doing, Doc?
Doing great, man. Enjoying it.
Good, good. Look, when we went to last break, we were talking about mold toxicity. I know that's popular in Louisiana with our humidity and all that. Can you tell us a little bit more?
It's true. So there is a population of folks, our great folks here in Louisiana, that can't figure out why they feel so bad all the time. You know, their energy is low. They wake up with brain fog. They can't focus. Their joints ache. Their sinuses are inflamed. And they've been from doctor to doctor to doctor, and they can't figure out why. And what we're finding is nearly 80%, up to 80% of the homes and offices in Louisiana may have some level of toxic mold. Now, obviously more than others, some more than others. And what these molds do is they release something called mycotoxins. And that's just one more thing that can put your body into a state to where it's sort of in that crisis emergency mode. And when you go into that crisis emergency mode, none of that calm side of your nervous system is able to function very well, which is your digestion, your hormones, all of those good things. And to make this even worse, up to 25% of the population has a genetic marker called HLA-DR. And what HLA-DR is an epigenetic marker. And when you're around mold, it turns this genetic marker on, and you start to have these symptoms. And the problem with HLA-DR is separating yourself from the mold doesn't turn it off. And so if you're allergic to a cat and you go into a home with a cat and you start to have, sinus problems and sneeze, well, when you leave, that goes away. The way this HLA-DR gene works is you could have been around mold 4 years ago cleaning up hurricane damage and started having symptoms shortly after, and it just never goes away, even if you live somewhere else. Once that epigenetic marker turns itself on, it's very complicated, and it's a process to get it to turn itself back off. Now, we do have a process for that, but just living your day-to-day life wondering what's wrong, it probably will never turn itself off. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it won't.
So it's not one of those things where it's like, you get sick. I don't want to worry about it. I'm just going to leave it alone for a couple of days, see if I feel better. With this, you're not going to feel better until you do something about it.
Right. Yeah. And you got to clean all those mycotoxins out of the system. You got to reset the system. You got to work on those genetic markers to the point to where they actually can turn themselves back off. And that's a new avenue of genetic science. We've sort of been told in the 90s and 2000s that you are a result of your genes. You're actually not. You're a result of your genes that are turned on and turned off. And so, someone goes, well, I got diabetes because mom had it. Well, why'd you get it at 40 and not 32?
Right.
Because you did enough damage that bad gene finally turned itself on. That's called epigenetics. And this HLA-DR gene with mold can be really bad. And that's why you can have a couple living in a house and the husband's going, well, if it were the house, I would be sick too. I'm fine. I have nothing. And the woman is sitting there and she wakes up tired. She has brain fog. She can't focus. Her joints ache. Her sinuses are inflamed. And they sort of write off the house like it's not the mold in the house or we would both have it. Not necessarily so.
Now, Doc, when it comes to resolving it, do you have to remediate the house at the same time or?
Yes, it's a good idea. And we have tests where we can bring in the home and we can test the home to see if it is. And it's a pretty complicated process to actually remediate mold out of a home. I mean, it literally, these mycotoxins get everywhere. So it really is sort of a top to bottom thing that we do in order to, rid the house. But the other thing you've got to get rid of it out of is the body. The liver, it stores in the fat cells. It's in all the lymphatic system. And so part of our protocol for this is you have to go through each system in the body and detoxify the mycotoxins. And the person actually starts to feel better, but it's definitely something that's important. And these are the patients that come in and go, Doc, I've been everywhere. No one can find what's wrong with me. My blood work's normal. I feel terrible. I'm 45 years old. I shouldn't feel like this. And I guess I'm just doomed. I guess I'm just unlucky. You're not unlucky. There's something going on.
And we had talked about also drops in energy and in energy levels when you wake up.
Right. And so, yes, there's something that we call energetic debt. And the energy molecule in your body is called ATP. ATP runs every function in your body. It runs your hormones, every breath, every nerve impulse, every muscle contraction. All of that runs off of ATP. So ATP is to your body what dollars are to your bank account.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right? And in your bank account, you have to deposit more than you spend.
Right.
And as long as you do that, your bank account is, quote, healthy.
Right.
Right? And in your body, you have to make more ATP than you spend. What we find with so many of our patients with chronic problems that have not been able to find a solution is that they are burning more energy than they are making.
Okay. And when it comes to mold toxicity and tying that back in, so your body's constantly responding to mold toxicity, and it's constantly depriving you of energy.
Yeah, it's a bill your body has to pay.
Oh, wow.
Right? And it's a big bill. And so, the way energetic debt works is it's almost like you have more bills than your body can deal with.
And can you ever sleep your way out of it?
No, usually not, because people sleep terribly.
I'm
Right?
definitely guilty of that.
Nobody sleeps good, right? And so the thing about energetic debt, just like when you're paying your bills, if you don't have enough to pay everything, what are you going to do? You're going to prioritize.
Right.
So you're going to pay the rent so you have a place to live. You're going to pay the electric bill because it's hot in Louisiana. We want our AC, right? We want our AC and television. But the cable bill, if they cut that off, I can still stream. Starbucks, I'm going to wait this month. I'm just going to make coffee at home. So we prioritize. This is what your body will do when it gets in this energetic debt state. Heart and lungs, give that some energy. Digestion, that's going to have to wait. Hormones, no way. Libido, are you kidding? We're barely paying heart and lungs. You want us to pay libido? That's not happening, right? And so people limp by like this in this energetic debt state, and they just feel like that's all that's there for them. And so a big part of what we do is, in addition to everything we've been talking about, finding the molds and the hidden infections and all those things, you have to rebuild the energy system. And so what we're talking about here is a part of your cellular structures called your mitochondria. And we all learned that in school, right?
Yep,
it's the powerhouse of the cell, right? Yeah. and so, but the truth is, in 2026, people's mitochondria are broken. We have more things in today's society that are taxing our body than our body can actually deal with. And so this state of energetic debt is something that we have to deal with. And the truth is, it's really the first thing we deal with, because I could be the best doctor in the world, and if I'm trying to treat someone that their body can't pay all of its bills, then I'm stuck.
Right.
That patient is stuck.
Right.
And so usually step number one with our functional program is, how do we fix the body's energy? Where are the bills are coming? Just like you would your budget. How many bills do I have, and how much can I deposit?
Right.
We want to deposit more and spend less. And so what are all the things that's draining this patient's energy, and how do we get their mitochondria to make more energy? And so that's really where this concept of energetic debt comes in. And it was developed by a doctor that I work with, Dr. Rob DiMartino out of Las Vegas. Him and I do a podcast together every week where we discuss these subjects in great detail. But energetic debt is something that we are starting to see in younger and younger and younger people. We used to think, kids had so much energy and teenagers had so much energy. They were, bouncing off the walls. And I'm seeing more and more kids and teenagers that their energy is very down. They're drained. They're already drained even before they hit teenage years. And the reason why is just all the things that we're exposed to in today's society is really bad for our energy system. We're indoors all the time. We're away from the ground. We're away from nature, and things that are around us are really draining our energy. And so going back and rebuilding all of that in the human body is why what we do is so complicated. The human body is just extremely complex, and fixing this concept of energetic debt by looking at where all the bills your body is paying and how do we get your body to deposit more, and then we can balance the account, just like you would with your monthly bills.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And Doc, we're gonna have to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, I want to talk more about digestive issues that come from mold exposure, that come from energy deprivation, and all that.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. Stay tuned. And welcome back to the Josh Guillory Show right here on KPEL 96.5 and streaming on Rumble. I'm Q Magic, your host for today. Josh is out, and in studio with me is Dr. Kevin Linderman at Dr. Kevin's Wellness Clinic. How we doing, Doc?
Doing good, man.
Before we went to break, we were talking about mold and energy deprivation and all that good stuff. But what happens with houses in South Louisiana, the way they're built today versus the way they were built in the past? It seems like my grandparents didn't necessarily have to focus on this, but now it's rising in prevalence pretty much across the region.
It's really across the whole country. You know, there was a big push to make houses as airtight as possible.
That sounds like some Biden stuff on the environment.
It was, yeah.
Oh man, next they're going to make us all use electric stoves.
Yeah, we won't get into the light bulbs.
I don't want to talk about it. I'm still mad about that.
Right. So it's true. Houses are so sealed up airtight that they hold moisture. And it didn't used to be that way. You know, houses had a little bit of breathability. And houses are so sealed that once you start to get these mycotoxins, they have a tendency to be able to grow and reproduce really quickly. And so, you know, the prevalence of mold in these homes is definitely more than it used to be.
Yeah, I remember reading something somewhere in Europe. They like to burp their houses where they'll open windows and doors, let fresh air in. Is that something that could be looked at down here to reduce mold?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The problem is the outside is as humid as the inside down here, so it's so humid.
Yeah,
we live in the perfect storm for mold toxicity.
Absolutely. I mean, you walk outside on a hot Louisiana day and you're instantly sweating, and that sweat is not going to evaporate.
Right. So
like,
it's just something we deal with here, you know. And so things like mold and there's another really common one here that causes people to have a lot of these real similar problems, and it presents real similar to mold. It's called MARCoNS, which is multiple antibiotic resistant negative. It's a coagulase negative staph, and this is something else that gets in the sinus cavities, and so. You've heard of people say, well, I got another sinus infection this week or this month. It's actually the same one that never fully goes away. What MARCoNS does is once it gets in your sinus cavities and it's antibiotic resistant. So when you hit it with antibiotics, it just sort of goes dormant.
Oh, wow.
And so it's not a new sinus infection. It's the same one that keeps reoccurring. And every time you hit it with antibiotics, it actually goes dormant. And so this is just one more thing that can drain our energy and cause us to be in this state of energetic debt. And you know what people have a tendency to do, and when I'm consulting with patients, and I mean, I've consulted over 10,000 people and I see these patterns, they will say their fatigue is a result of all their conditions. You know, I have IBS, I have autoimmune, I have, you know, all these things. Oh, and I'm also very tired. What they don't realize is it's the reverse. They have all of those conditions because their energy system crashed years ago, and they've been in energetic debt and continually getting sicker and sicker because their body doesn't have the energy to heal all of its systems and run all of its systems, its immune system, its digestive system, its hormonal system. So it's the energetic debt causing the conditions, not the conditions causing you to be tired.
That makes sense because, I mean, if you can never actually recover and you never fix the underlying condition, like you said, once that genetic marker is turned on, until you turn it off, you're really going to struggle to catch up.
It's true. You know, the society that we're living in today is almost the perfect storm to drain our body's ability to keep up with its energy. You know, it's almost like if you go outside, look in your mailbox, expecting your paycheck, and I know nobody gets their paycheck mailed these days. I'm dating myself even saying that, but instead of your paycheck being in the mailbox, it's 2 inches thick of bills that you weren't expecting. So you go back the next day expecting your paycheck, and it's 2 more inches of bills you weren't expecting. And this happens day after day after day. And with the environment that we're in and the state of 2026 in America, we live in the perfect environment for patients to develop this lack of energy or this energetic debt. And this can happen either from one major trauma, like, you know, some major stressor, or it can be lots of little stressors. But all of these things, these hidden infections, these mold, these MARCoNS, all these digestive issues. Everything that we're talking about drains our body's energy, and that's something that has to be dealt with. How do we fix the mitochondria? How do we get the deposits more and the bills less? And if you look at it as this bank account analogy, that's really what we have to do.
That makes perfect sense, Doc. And one of the things that we had touched on earlier was digestive health.
Yeah.
And the impacts that has. Now, we have about a minute left before we have to go to a break. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I will. So the thing about digestive health, and look, Acadiana has a digestive health problem. I mean, it's an epidemic. I talk to so many patients that have
I can
so
imagine.
many digestive diagnoses. And so you have to look at the digestive system as a system. It's called a system for a reason. What happens in your stomach affects what happens in your small intestine, and that's what happens and affects what happens in your large intestine. So what I'll do when we get back from break is we will go through some details about the digestive system as a whole and how we actually look at that. That's a lot different from what modern medicine's doing.
Absolutely. We'll be right back. And stay tuned. Hour number 2 of the Josh Guillory Show is coming up after this. Good afternoon. I'm Q Magic filling in for Josh today. And in studio with me is our dear friend, Dr. Kevin Linderman with Dr. Kevin's Wellness Clinic. Doc, how we doing today?
Hello, hello. I'm having a blast over here.
Oh, same here. Before we went to break, we were talking about the digestive system. And I was thinking to myself, what exactly is the digestive system? What are the components? How does it work?
Well, it's very true. And my take on the digestive system is we have to stop looking at a colon problem as a colon problem and a stomach problem as a stomach problem. It's called a system for a reason. You know, it's like the postal system. All parts of the postal system have to work for you to be able to put a letter in the mailbox here and grandma get it in Idaho.
Absolutely.
And if any part of that system breaks down, grandma doesn't get her letter.
That's true.
And that's how I take a look at the digestive system. So what happens in your stomach prepares the food for your small intestine, and what happens in your small intestine prepares the food for your large intestine, and there's a whole lot that has to go right in there for it to work normal. And so many times I see physicians sort of get blinders on is colon symptoms mean a colon problem. And nothing really could be further from the truth. You know, digestion actually begins in your saliva.
I didn't know that.
Right. And so your saliva has a very important job to do. Now, if you eat like me and eat so fast that the saliva has no chance to touch your food, it's a bad habit of mine, but you know, each step is very important. So if we start in the stomach, so we've been told for 40, 50 years now that everyone has high stomach acid. You know, they even have commercials on TV where they show the little stomach acid pumps just pumping away. But let's stop and think if that's really the case. So stomach acid naturally gets lower as we get older. And so I'm submitting today that most people have actually low stomach acid that have reflux, not high stomach acid. And so if stomach acid gets less as we age, so older folks generally have less stomach acid than teenagers. Wouldn't teenagers be the one getting reflux if it was from high stomach acid?
That's what it seems like would be the
Right?
case.
I mean, teenagers can eat a 3-day-old pizza and not get reflux, right?
True.
And so I talk to people that are down to like 3 foods and they still get reflux. And so most patients that we see actually have low stomach acid. And so think about it the other way. You know, I was talking earlier, everyone is stuck in fight or flight.
Right.
You don't have more stomach acid in fight or flight. You have less. Stress shuts down digestion. Your stomach under stress makes less stomach acid. So then why does everyone have reflux? Well, it's what we call food rotting. So when you don't have adequate stomach acid and you eat food, your food sits there and very quickly begins to ferment. It basically rots. And if you've ever gone out in the summertime and looked in your trash can and your food has liquefied, that's what happens in your stomach.
Oh, wow.
So the reflux that people feel is generally the organic acids from the food rot, not from the hydrochloric acid that their stomach is supposed to make. So that's step number 1, is do you have adequate stomach acid to break down your food? Now, most people do not. And then what happens is the food moving from the small intestine to the large intestine isn't acidic enough, because patients ask me, well, why does my reflux medicine work? Well, because there's a second medicine in there many times that just empties the stomach into the small intestine, so you don't feel the reflux anymore. So then you have undigested, low acidic food going into the small intestine, and it creates something called SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So you're not supposed to have a lot of bacteria in your small intestine. You're supposed to have that in your large intestine. But if the food coming out of your stomach is not acidic enough, you will get overgrowth of bacteria in your small intestine. And when that bacteria produces air, there's nowhere for that air to escape. And you get bloating. That's why so many people I talk to have acid reflux, and they've been on acid reflux medication, and now they have bloating. That is something called SIBO many times, where they have too much bacterial overgrowth in their small intestine, and then it creates a huge imbalance in the bacteria in the large intestine. So, you have to look at these things as a whole and actually figure out what the system is doing so that you can fix the whole system.
Now, I remember in a previous Wellness Wednesday some weeks back, we talked about antibiotics and the overuse of antibiotics across the spectrum, how does that impact gut health?
Well, it's huge. Antibiotics, I remember back, I think it was like early 90s, everyone was talking about the overuse of antibiotics. Like, we've got to limit the use of antibiotics. And you notice you just don't hear about that anymore?
Yeah, I remember as a kid, it was constant, and now it was like killer bees.
Right.
Every day or every week on the news, there was something about killer bees. There was something about antibiotic resistance,
Right.
and now there's neither.
We're back to the overuse of antibiotics a lot of times, and even like preventative. I talked to a patient the other day that was told she'll need antibiotics constantly for life.
Oh, wow!
Like, you never get off of antibiotics, right? Like, you're constantly on antibiotics, and so this is definitely something that can destroy your gut microbiome and destroy your health. And so maybe whenever we get back from this break, we'll talk a little bit more about what the overuse of antibiotics actually does does to your gut microbiome, and how we're able to determine what that balance is, and how we reverse a lot of that.
Absolutely. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Q Magic, your host for today, and in studio with me is our dear friend, Dr. Kevin Linderman of Dr. Kevin's Wellness Clinic. Doc, how we doing?
Man, I'm letting them have it today, huh?
Yes, you are. And before we went to break, we were talking about autoimmune disease and how it impacts us.
Yeah, and so you wanted my take kind of on autoimmune because it is one of the things that we have a tendency to focus on. And the first thing that I would say about autoimmune disease is in an earlier segment, we talked about energetic debt.
Yes.
And for those of you that might just be tuning in, what energetic debt means is that your body is spending more energy than it's making. Now, what I didn't mention in that segment, and we compared it to a bank account, right? Like your body has more bills than it can pay. Like you're just like your bank account can be in debt, your body is in debt. Its mitochondria are broken, and your ATP is not being made fast enough to efficiently run everything. Now, one thing that I didn't mention in that segment is your body's biggest bill that it has to pay. So just like in your bank account, it's probably your mortgage. Your body's biggest bill that it has to pay is to make new cells. So we have something like 37 trillion cells in our body that have to be constantly replaced. So you have a new skin every 14 days. You have a new lining of your digestive tract every 3 days. You have a new liver, something like every 8 to 12 weeks. And so your body's biggest energy expenditure is making new cellular copies, making copies of copies. So basically, the body that you're sitting in today has been totally changed out cellularly than it was 10 years ago. You have a whole new body every 10 years. All your cells are slowly replaced.
Oh, wow.
Right. Very interesting. So the question is, if you have a whole new liver every, so many weeks, why does liver disease continue if all those cells have been replaced, right?
Right.
And so that's where the energy system of the body comes in. And so in a functional wellness view of autoimmune disease, and all of my opinions here are always from a functional wellness perspective. So what ends up happening with autoimmune, in the traditional field, it's seen as the immune system is making a mistake and it's attacking healthy tissue. And by the way, let me back up just a second. When we talk about autoimmune disease, for those of you that may not know, what that means is that your immune system is attacking yourself, autoimmune. So in lupus, it attacks your soft tissue. In rheumatoid arthritis, it attacks your joints. In Crohn's, it attacks your colon. In Hashimoto's, it attacks your thyroid. So in traditional medicine, autoimmune diseases are named by the tissue being attacked.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's how it's all categorized. And so the way it's seen in the traditional view of this is the immune system is making a mistake and it's attacking healthy tissue. And we have a different take on it. Because of energetic debt, your cell replication has become very poor. So those new cell copies look just as bad as the old cell copies. Because your body doesn't have enough energy to make healthy, fresh, nice-looking cells, your new cell copies are damaged and deformed and unhealthy. Think of it like this. Imagine if I had a paper towel factory, right? And I made paper towels. And the factory was running great. Okay, so the employees were showing up, the factory bank account was full, the management was doing a great job, the owners are happy, the factory's just clicking along.
Right.
And we're meeting our quota and we're making nice, beautiful paper. We're making Bounty paper towels, right? And so now let's say that the factory falls on hard times. The employees go on strike. Someone steals all the money out of the bank account. The management's doing a really poor job. So what does the owners do? Well, we still have a quota to meet, make them cheaper. So now we're making sparkle paper towels.
Gotcha.
Right? We're making great value paper towels, right?
We're making use the whole roll to clean up a glass of water paper towels.
Right. This is the analogy that happens to your cell replication when you don't have a vibrant energy system. So the copies of your new cells are being made very poorly, and they're so deformed and poor that the immune system looks over at that tissue and goes, we don't even know what that is. We don't recognize that as supposed to be here. And then the immune system will go attack to try to clean up those damaged cells. but it's the only cells that are there.
So the body's basically viewing it as these are damaged cells.
Right.
We have to get rid of them. And the bad news is it's the last cells of their kind that are still there.
It's the only cells that your body is making. So the new cells are as unhealthy as the old one. And so when we look at the immune system, first we have to go back to, once again, the big levers I talked about, where we got to get the energy system fixed, we got to get the gut fixed, all these things. And then basically the best way to deal with autoimmune is you got to get the cells made healthy. So the immune system goes, oh, that's us. You know, we recognize that. That's our own thyroid. We don't want to attack that. Or that's our own joints. We don't want to keep attacking that. We now see that that's healthier tissue. And so it is a completely different way of looking at autoimmune in the body and why the immune system would attack itself. And, you know, the general philosophy behind it, functional wellness versus, you know, traditional, is we don't really think the body's stupid and makes a lot of mistakes, right?
Right.
Like, oh, your body's stupid. It's raising the blood pressure again. Oh, your body's stupid. It's raising your blood sugar again. No, your body is doing the best it can with the really crappy hand that it's been dealt. You just got to deal it a better hand. You just got to fix the systems that run the body and keep it healthy. And your body wants to be healthy. Your body is a survival machine. We've survived for eons. It's just that in today's society, the way that we live, we're inside all the time. We're around EMF all the time. We're stressed all the time. Our diet is terrible. I mean, I could list 30 things that make us unhealthy these days. And so it's just reversing a lot of what has caused chronic disease to skyrocket, which it has. I mean, there's been a 683% increase in neurological disorders, you know, brain disorders, cancers. All of these things are skyrocketing. And the reason why is because a lot of these things that we're talking about today.
And I think one of the things that really stands out to me now is the for all of my life at least, the average human life expectancy constantly grew and grew and grew and grew. And now it seems to be regressing a little bit.
It is. I read something the other day that said that the society that is being born now might be the first generation that didn't outlive its grandparents.
Which is wild to me when you consider the amount of research, everything that's gone into extending human life, and the fact that we're now starting to see that regression begin to take shape is really mind-blowing.
Yeah. And you know, this isn't true across the whole world. I mean, we rank 45th in life expectancy in the United States of America. China beats us. Cambodia beats us. Now, some places in Cambodia, they might be a 3-day walk from any kind of facility.
Right.
Right. And they outlive us.
And cobras are endemic.
Right, exactly. And they have cobras, right? And so getting to the underlying reasons of why disease is happening in the body, and people really misunderstand what I do a lot of times. You know, they think I'm going to come in, I'm going to give them something for their sleep, I'm going to give them the next supplement, and we're just kind of playing around the edges. We don't play around the edges. Like we get to we leave no stone unturned. Like we get to the underlying core of why sickness is happening. And then we ask ourselves an important question. Is there anything I can do to change it? Right?
Right. Doc, we're going to have to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to continue our conversation and introduce the topic of Lyme disease.
Okay.
Because I know across South Louisiana, we have so many outdoorsmen, and we've all encountered a tick at one point or another, and we all have that fear.
Sure.
So y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Good afternoon. I'm Q Magic, your host for today. Josh is out, but he's coming back tomorrow. In studio with me is Dr. Kevin Linderman, a dear friend of ours. Doc, before we went to break, we were talking about autoimmune disease, and I couldn't get past thinking about Lyme disease.
Yeah, so Lyme's is chronic Lyme. Now there is such a thing as get bit by a tick, getting Lyme, and then getting over it.
Okay.
But what you're really referring to is chronic Lyme, which is there are certain bacterias that get in the body and they become chronic. And this is something that is a very devastating thing to have with patients. I mean, it is very, very challenging for patients that have chronic Lyme, and we're able to do quite a bit with it. But man, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And these people are just riddled with pain and inflammation and even sometimes, difficulty walking and things like that. And, pain is one of those things that I wanted to touch on just a little bit, speaking of Lyme disease, because a lot of people listening have chronic pain. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that because sometimes I have patients come in and they're focused on the area of their body that hurts. Doc, my knee hurts, or my shoulder hurts, or my elbow hurts. And the first thing that we want to know with those patients is what is their systemic inflammation level? So, and when I talk about systemic inflammation, everybody sprained an ankle. You know what a sprained ankle looks like,
Right.
Like it's red and inflamed and swollen and puffy and tender. What systemic inflammation means is if you could look inside your body, it all looks like that.
Even the organs?
Everything is inflamed. Everything is red and tender and swollen. Now, doctors will tell patients all the time, well, you just have a lot of inflammation. And yes, inflammation is a bad thing. And yes, inflammation leads to other diseases and conditions. But what's causing the inflammation? Inflammation is not the fire. It's still the smoke. There's something creating inflammation in the body. And it could be a lot of the things we've talked about today, the hidden infections, the Lyme disease, all of the things, the mold toxicity, all those things we've talked about today create inflammation. But the first thing that I have to ask a patient or ask myself about a patient whenever they tell me they're inflamed is, what's the source? And we do a very large inflammation panel on our blood work. Our blood work's like 12 pages of stuff, by the way. So, so there's a very large inflammation panel on our blood work that shows what type of inflammation they have, because most people don't realize there's several types.
I had no idea.
And so there's 6 or 7 different types of specific inflammation, and you have to know what type so that you know where it's coming from, so you know to find the source of the inflammation. Even with things like disc, so many people are told that they have disc issues, or their disc is bulged, or their disc is herniated. But if they're systemically inflamed, everything's going to be swollen and herniated and bulging and painful. So a lot of times we can treat those by looking at the cause of the inflammation itself. And when we reduce systemic inflammation, we reduce what the cause is of that systemic inflammation, the patient does amazing with that.
I could definitely see that. And to me, that goes back to the entire system of treat the underlying actual causes versus the label or the overall presentation.
Yeah, it's true. And so if you take Advil and your pain gets better, that's because you have inflammation.
Me.
Right. And so now you need to know what's creating that inflammation and how do we actually get to the source. And, people pop these Advils and these other NSAIDs like it's candy.
Me.
Even the bottle says not to take it more than 10 days.
I don't count how many I take at a time.
Just a handful at a time.
I don't even really put it in my hand. I just have the bottle on the counter.
Tip the bottle up.
Yep.
Yeah, that's definitely inflammation. And inflammation is a limiting step in the body. And especially with things like disc, all the new research towards discs is that a disc sort of does what the surrounding tissue is pressuring it. So think of it like the tire on your car. If you pull too forward into a curb and your tire bulges out on both sides, well, when you back up, it goes back. Your tire goes back.
Right.
And that's very similar to the disc. And so one of the things we do on these disc cases is we do what's called motion study radiography, where we take plain film x-rays in gravity bearing, like standing, bending films. Because think about it, even like an MRI, they do lay down and not move.
Right.
Hospital x-rays, lay down and not move. Well, when you lay down and don't move, you're taking motion and gravity out of the picture.
Which
Right.
are two of the major causes, right?
Yeah. So, well, when does your disc hurt you? Well, when I'm upright and moving. Well, let's have you lay down and not move to look at it. I don't. To me, that never has really made sense. So, I developed a specific set of X-rays with Envision Imaging in partnership with Envision Imaging, where we do gravity-bearing motion study X-rays, where we have the patient stand and bend and flex and move themselves so that we can see what the joints and discs and shoulders and is actually bending and moving, and being able to see what something does in a gravity-bearing, flexing, bending posture is really neat, because the patient can look at their own films and go, that's not normal. That's definitely abnormal there. And so once again, it's just getting to the underlying cause and the underlying reasons of why these things are occurring.
And that makes complete sense. I mean, you know, if you're only in pain when you stand up, an X-ray of your knee when you're laying down isn't going to show what the condition is when you're in pain.
Right.
So, I mean, I could definitely see where someone looks at an X-ray of someone laying down and they don't see anything.
Right.
But in your format, someone standing up or actually, you know, putting weight on it, being under the influence of gravity, you know, it actually is able to show what's going on.
Right. Right.
Doc, we got about 19 seconds left.
All right. I just want to thank you for having me, man. Thanks for listening out there. I have had a blast today. And, man, I'm excited I got to be here.
Doc, we can't thank you enough for coming in. It's always a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. The Joe Cunningham Show is up next, live from Piper's Haven.